people say the Iranians will never change their behavior. Well, maybe that's true, but isn't it worth trying?
Unfortunately, the president is receiving some really bad advice on this deal. I don't want to see us send a penny to the Ayatollah.
Iran took Trump to the cleaners with this so-called understanding.
I'm glad we're on the course, on the path to diplomacy, and we'll know in the coming weeks what kind of deal we will get.
Well, a lot of people, both sides of the aisle, lawmakers, all kinds of pundits weighing in on the Iran peace deal and what comes next. The Iranian parliamentary speaker went to X just minutes ago, saying the task assigned to us by the supreme leader is to pursue the realization of the conditions and clauses of the agreement. In the event of bad faith, breach of contract, and excessive demands by the opposing side, we have no hesitation in delivering a crushing response to the enemy. That's from the Iranian parliamentary speaker. Let's bring in our panel. Kimberly Strassel, Fox News contributor, Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams, and Megan Messerly, White House reporter for Politico. Kimberly, you know, the incoming on the criticism has been pretty stiff, and the vice president was out today kind of defending that on all fronts.
They would have to get a lot of money in order to rebuild their nuclear program. You're talking about billions and billions of nuclear infrastructure that the United States destroyed. In order for them to rebuild that program, they would have to get a lot of money. And we have them in an economic chokehold right now that we're not going to release until they fundamentally change their behavior. What would that look like? That would mean a real inspections regime.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, though, is that under the terms of this deal, we will not be putting them in an economic chokehold anymore. And that's really what the criticism over this memorandum is. Under this deal, they get immediate ending of the embargo on their products, which means they're going to be able to start shipping oil out and reset their oil fields, which were on the verge of having to shut because they had no more storage space. They get immediate relief from sanctions. And by the way, some of the fine print of this deal is that we commit to not imposing any more on them until the end of 60 days, to the termination of some sort of understanding, and they get immediate access to frozen funds. Now, it would be one thing if what the administration was saying is, well, you know, they're allowing us to now open the Strait of Hormuz and we're going to talk and get to the end of a nuclear deal and nothing else. But instead, we are relinquishing, bailing out an Iran that's at its weakest in 47 years with all of these permissions and money and exceptions, which is going to allow it to put it back on a stronger footing and have even less reason to go ahead and make further concessions.
Yeah, the naval blockade officially coming to an end today. CENTCOM putting out a statement saying today U.S. forces lifted the blockade on all maritime traffic emerging and exiting Iranian ports and coastal areas. Our great naval ships will remain in the general area to make sure that all aspects of the agreement are adhered to, obeyed, and in full force and effect. You know, you saw the president the other day in the G7 joking that if this deal goes wrong, it's going to be Vice President Vance who'll be fronting it, and he kind of laughed at that, and the Vice President said it was a joke. But you know, the Supreme Leader in Iran came out and said the only reason he signed off on it was because the Iranian president said he would take the blame if it went south. Take a listen.
In principle, I had a different view. But because of the commitment that the respected president, as head of the Supreme National Security Council, gave me on behalf of himself and the other members to safeguard the rights of the Iranian nation and the resistant front, and because he explicitly accepted responsibility for it, I issued permission for it.
Sounds similar. Juan?
It does, doesn't it? So I guess everybody is arguing over this deal. You know, I take a different position, but I just think, look, we've got to stop arguing over the deal. It's a deal, and we got to figure out how to make the best of the deal. And that includes Democrats, that includes Israel, a lot of people who have strong reservations about the terms of the deal. But the president has approved, our president, the United States president, has approved the deal. He doesn't want to go back to war. I think he feels politically burned. It's never been popular with the public. I think there are questions about, you know, underestimating the Iranian resolve here. And so we're in a position as the United States to look for how we can possibly do our best to prevent Iran in the future from getting any nuclear weaponry and protect the Strait of Hormuz. Arguing over the deal at this point looks futile to me.
Yeah. Megan, we often look back to experts in the past that have looked at the same issues. You go back to 2006, Henry Kissinger writing about the next steps with Iran. He said this: a modern, strong, peaceful Iran could become a pillar of stability and progress in the region. This cannot happen unless Iran's leaders decide whether they are representing a cause or a nation, whether their basic motivation is crusading or international cooperation. We're basically at the same point right now, determining whether the 60 days they're going to make that choice or the other one.
I think that's exactly what we heard from Vice President J.D. Vance today. I was in the White House briefing room where he was talking to reporters about his and the president's vision for what the next 60 days look like. And he really put the ball in Iran's court, saying, the way we've structured this agreement, they move, we move. Of course, there are certain concessions, and folks have raised concerns about them. The fact that Iran gets certain things right off the bat under the MOU, but the argument that the vice president was making is this is really supposed to be an agreement that really gets us on a better path to nuclear talks, to further negotiations. But it is a gamble here, and that's one of the big things that I've spent the last couple days talking to folks about is, there's no guarantee that this all goes the way the U.S. wants it to. And I think that's what we heard from the vice president today. And I think it's the thing underpinning this whole deal is we don't actually know if this is going to result in Iran really permanently not having nuclear weapons.
Yeah, and the political implications ahead of November, obviously significant. Panel, stand by if you would. Up next, the rise of Democratic Socialist candidates around the country, and then the newest Medal of Honor recipients.
As mayor, I will work with anyone who makes D.C. safer, but I will also stand up to Trump.
In Washington, crime is way down. People feel much safer. The president has shown a willingness to work with anybody who shares those desires, even in blue cities.
Maybe we'll take back Washington, run it on the federal basis. We won't put up with it. We're not going to lose our businesses.
Well, Democratic Socialist candidates are winning in primaries in the D.C. mayor's race. A Democratic Socialist has won that primary. Likely will become the next mayor of Washington, D.C., and it's happening other places. We're back with the panel. Kimberly, there are concerns in the moderate wing of the Democratic Party that this is changing the dynamic around the country.
There should be. When you talk to Republicans and what is otherwise a pretty glum midterm outlook, when they see races like this, it's what gives them a little smile on their face. They hope it continues because they came out of 2024, they got thumped because of these progressive priorities that were there. They had a little bit of soul searching, and now they've gone straight back. This is what they're electing. And while it's possible to elect these sort of characters in New York City and Washington, D.C., you now see that fervor spreading other places like in Maine, where they have a candidate that's pretty, it's not a Democratic Socialist, but about as progressive as you get. And that's making Republicans feel a little bit better about some really high-profile marquee races they have this fall.
Yeah, Democratic advisor Doug Schoen says far-left Democrats keep saying saving Republicans from themselves. Juan, Democrats are set to enter the midterm general election cycle potentially with a slate of nominees whose positions and backgrounds may do more to help rescue the GOP than anything Republicans have done or will be able to do for themselves. Democrats remain polarized and divided with ideological and personal fissures that have taken the form of an intra-party struggle. What do you make of that?
I think Doug's right. From my perspective, I think the key to the midterms obviously is turnout for the Democrats. And there are two approaches to that I can see taking shape right now. One is that you have people like Bernie Sanders, Mondami, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or this new mayor in D.C. And what they're appealing to is Democrats' anger over President Trump, some of his divisive actions and behavior. But then you also have the Rahm Emanuels, you also have the Josh Shapiros, the Ruben Gallegos, and their approach to getting Democrats to turn out in November is a more moderate, unified approach, saying we need to be the party that's sane, rational, pragmatic about solutions to home, the kitchen table issues, the gas prices and inflation. That's the split Doug is talking about. And right now, though, when you look at New York or D.C., you're looking at real, true blue areas. That's just about Democratic anger more so than any strategy.
Speaking of New York, live look into New York. This event, getting ready to hear from New York Mayor Mamdani, and there he is at the mic alongside Senator Bernie Sanders. Let's listen in for a second.
On the politics of big money and small ideas, a movement to usher in a new era for our city, a movement to make government every single New Yorker, not just the wealthy and the well-connected.
A little taste there from Mayor Mamdani, and this is ongoing. He's essentially testing his political clout in that New York primary with Democratic Socialist candidates for different congressional seats. You know, you look at the list of priorities for Democratic Socialists, at least on their website, it is quite something. And you scroll through Medicare for all, end the war on drugs, fight mass incarceration, police brutality, college for all, housing for all, 32-hour work week, tax the rich, Green New Deal, free Palestine, end the U.S. war machine. It continues on. And the question is how broad this will be across the country.
That is absolutely the question, Bret. And I think the challenge for Democrats, progressive Democrats, and Democratic Socialists alike is how to transition their agenda into an actual governing philosophy. A lot of the policy proposals they have would be very difficult to accomplish, and we have not seen the kind of widespread support in the U.S. to actually get them done. On the other hand, what I think is really interesting, and I talked to a lot of folks in and around the White House about this, is you see folks like Mamdani really speaking to this sort of anti-establishment sentiment. Folks are unhappy with the status quo. They're unhappy with what they see as quote-unquote establishment Democrats. And so they're voting for these sort of change agents because they're unhappy with the Democratic Party as it is. And so the big question then moving forward is, okay, that's great that there's that Democratic enthusiasm, but how do Democrats figure out how to actually capture that and, to what we were just talking about, translate that into an actual governing philosophy?
I mean, I do think that this is fascinating on both parties. You have the war and dividing the MAGA part of the party, and then on the Democratic side, this split. How that plays out over the next few months is really going to tell the story of the midterms. Panel, thanks so much.